Hello and welcome. Tonight, our journey takes us to an impossible city. A city born from the sea, dream of stone and water floating between the tides. We are traveling to Renaissance Venice, a place of immense wealth, breathtaking art, and shadowy intrigue. But we will not be visiting the Doge in his palace or the merchants in their counting houses. Instead, we will follow the city's silent heartbeat. We will drift along its dark canals with the men who saw everything, heard everything, and said nothing. We will learn what it was like to be a gondolier, so settle back. Let the gentle sound of lapping water fill your mind. There is nothing for you to do. There's nowhere for you to be. Simply rest and let the story carry you away. Our story begins on a misty morning in the year of our Lord, 1520. We are in the labyrinthine city of Venice, the most serene republic, the queen of the Adriatic. Our story does not begin in the grandeur of the Piazza San Marco, but in the quiet working-class district of Gondolier. Here in the damp, narrow rooms above a small bakery, our young man Marco is waking. The first light of dawn is a soft gray luminescence filtering through a small unglazed window, and it brings with it the sounds and smells of his world. He can hear the distant, melodic cries of the first fishmongers setting up their stalls, the soft splash of an early morning or in the canal below, and the comforting smell of baking bread rising through the floorboards. Marco is 19 years old. His body is lean and wiry, all sinew and bone, conditioned by years of hard, repetitive work. He rises from his simple, straw-filled mattress and moves with a quiet economy of motion. His small room is sparse, containing only his bed, a wooden chest for his clothes, and a small religious icon painted on a piece of wood. He pulls on his clothes, simple woolen trousers, and a coarse linen shirt. Later, when he begins his work, he will don the uniform of his trade, the iconic striped shirt that marks him as a gondolier. But for now, he is just Marco, a young man of Venice, his life tied inextricably to the water that surrounds him. He eats a simple breakfast of hard bread and cheese, his mind already on the day ahead. His true world, his place of work and his most prized possession, waits for him below. He descends the narrow, winding stone staircase and emerges into the cool, damp air of the canal-side walkway, the fondamenta. And there she is, his gondola. To an outsider, it is merely a boat, one of thousands that navigate the city's watery streets. But to Marco, it is a living thing, an extension of his own body. It is a long, elegant, and impossibly slender vessel, over 35 feet in length, but less than 5 feet wide at its broadest point. Its hull is made of 8 different kinds of wood oak for the sides, larch for the keel, fir, elm, cherry, each chosen for its specific properties of strength and flexibility. The entire boat is coated in a thick, gleaming layer of black pitch, a color that is not a choice, but a legal requirement, sumptuary law, designed to curb the ostentatious displays of the nobility, who once painted their gondolas in garish colors. The boat is a marvel of engineering, its design perfected over centuries to navigate the unique challenges of the Venetian canals. It is asymmetrical, with the left side of the hull being slightly wider than the right. This subtle curve, invisible to the untrained eye, counteracts the thrust of the single oar, allowing the gondolier to propel the boat forward in a straight line without a rudder. It is a delicate, precarious balance, a secret of physics understood not through theory, but through the lived bodily experience of the rower. Marco runs his hand along the smooth, cool side of his boat, checking the pitch for any cracks or damage. He takes in its familiar smell, a mixture of the sharp scent of the tar, the damp wood, and the salty, fishy air of the lagoon. He then turns his attention to the two most important and most personal parts of the vessel. The first is the great iron prow, the Pharaoh. It is a heavy, complex piece of metalwork. It's a shape representing the curves of the Grand Canal. And its 6 forward-pointing teeth, or rebi, representing the 6 districts, or sesteri of Venice. It is more than just a decoration. It is a counterweight to the gondolier at the stern, its heavy iron form essential for the boat's balance. It is also a tool, its sharp form used to gauge the height of bridges and to protect the prow from collisions. The second, and arguably more important piece, is the forcola, the oarlock. It is not the simple, circular oarlock of a common rowboat. The Venetian forcola is a complex sculptural piece of art, carved from a single solid block of seasoned walnut or cherry wood. It is an object of strange and beautiful curves, notches, and prongs. Each of these curves is functional. There are points for rowing forward at speed, for slowing down, for turning, for reversing, for spinning the boat on a dime. The forcola is the brain of the gondola, the interface through which the rower communicates his will to the boat. Each gondolier has his forcola custom carved to his own height and rowing style, and Marco's fits into its slot on the gunwale with a satisfying, perfect firmness. Finally, he takes up his oar, the remo. It is over 13 feet long, a straight, strong shaft of seasoned beechwood. It is not just a paddle for pushing water. It is a sensitive limb, an extension of his own arm that allows him to feel the water, its currents, its eddies, its weight. With his boat checked and his tools in place, Marco unties the rope from the painted wooden mooring pole, the paulina that marks his family's post. He steps onto the stern of the boat with a practiced, cat-like grace, his body automatically adjusting to the gondola's gentle rocking. For a moment, he stands still, feeling the life of the boat beneath his feet. Then, with a smooth, powerful, and almost silent motion, he dips the long blade of the remo into the murky green water of the canal and pushes off, his day's work begun. The first hour of his day is not for a fair. It is for him. It is for practice. The art of the voga alla veneta, the Venetian style of rowing, is a lifelong study, a craft that is never truly perfected. It is unlike any other rowing style in the world. The gondolier stands on the stern, facing forward in the direction of travel. This allows him to see where he is going, an essential requirement in the narrow, crowded canals. The stroke is not a simple pull, but a complex, J-shaped push and recovery, a fluid, graceful motion that seems effortless when performed by a master, but which requires immense core strength, balance, and stamina. Marco glides through the still, empty canals of the early morning. The only sound the soft splash and drip of his oar and the gentle lapping of the water against the stone foundations of the ancient buildings. He practices his turns, the subtle feathering of the oar in the water, a slight shift of his body weight that can make the long black boat pivot with impossible grace. He practices his braking, turning the oar blade against the current to bring the 35-foot vessel to a smooth and silent stop just inches from a wall. He practices the subtle adjustments needed to navigate around the sharp, blind corners that make up the labyrinth of the city. As he approaches a junction, he gives the traditional melodic cry, a warning to any unseen boat that might be approaching. His voice calls out, the sound echoing for a moment between the damp, narrow walls before being swallowed by the silence. This is his art, his science, his language. It is a knowledge passed down from his father, and from his father's father, a physical wisdom held not in books, but in the muscles of his back and the calluses on his hands. Marco's solitary practice is more than just a honing of his physical skills. It is a communion with his city before it fully awakens. He glides through a world of soft grays and muted colors, a Venice that is intimate and almost private. He passes under small arched stone bridges, their underside slick with green algae, the water so close he could reach out and touch it. He sees the shuttered windows of the palaces, their sleeping inhabitants still lost in dreams of wealth and power. He sees the city's cats, the true masters of the quiet alleyways, slinking along the stone ledges, their movements as silent as his own. For this brief, magical hour, the labyrinth belongs to him. But this peace is fleeting. As the sun climbs higher, its first rays striking the tops of the bell towers and gilded domes, the city begins to stir in earnest. The great bells of the Campanile and the Piazza San Marco begin to toll, a deep, resonant sound that rolls across the rooftops and lagoons, calling the city to its daily labors. Windows are thrown open, the sound of wooden shutters banging against stone walls, echoing across the canals. The air begins to fill with a new chorus of sounds, the shouting of merchants, the hammering from a nearby boatyard, the murmur of prayers from an early morning mass. Venice is waking up, and it is time for Marco to begin his real work. He directs his gondola towards one of the city's official gondola stations, Astasio, where he and his fellow gondoliers will wait for their fares. His Stasio is near a busy square, a campo, adjacent to the Rialto market, the commercial heart of the Republic. It is a prime location, a post his family has held for generations, and it comes with its own fierce code of conduct and hierarchy. As he approaches, he sees the other gondoliers of his station already there, their long black boats moored neatly side by side. These men are his colleagues, his rivals, and his extended family. They are a brotherhood, bound by a shared craft and a shared identity. But they are also fierce competitors in a city where a missed fare means a lighter purse at the end of the day. The men are a study in contrasts. There are older, weathered gondoliers, men who have spent 50 years on the canals, their faces as wrinkled and salt-curd as old leather. They sit on the stone steps, mending their nets or polishing the brasswork on their boats, their movements slow and deliberate. Then there are the younger men, like Marco, full of restless energy, their eyes constantly scanning the crowds emerging from the alleyways, looking for the telltale signs of a wealthy merchant or a foreign visitor in need of a ride. They exchange greetings, a mixture of gruff pleasantries and sharp-witted insults, their voices carrying the distinctive musical dialect of the Venetian lagoon. The life of a gondolier is governed by a powerful and ancient guild, the Arte dei Gondolieri. This is not a mere trade association. It is one of the most respected and tightly controlled institutions in Venice. The guild dictates every aspect of their professional lives. It sets the official fares, ensuring that a nobleman cannot be charged more than a baker for the same journey. It limits the number of official gondola licenses, creating a closed and highly sought-after profession. With sons often inheriting the right to a license from their fathers, the guild also enforces a strict code of conduct. A gondolier who is caught cheating a customer who is drunk on the job, or who speaks out of turn about what he has overheard in his boat, can be brought before the guild's council. The punishments are severe: hefty fines, a temporary suspension of one's license, or, for the most serious offenses, expulsion from the guild, a sentence that would be a financial and social death knell. This strict regulation fosters a powerful sense of corporate identity. To be a gondolier is to be more than just a boatman. It is to be a recognized and respected member of the Venetian social fabric, a position with its own unique privileges and responsibilities. Have their own patron saint, St. John the Baptist, and their own chapels. They have a reputation to uphold, a reputation for unparalleled skill, for quiet discretion, and for a fierce, almost familial loyalty to their fellow gondoliers. An insult to one gondolier is an insult to them all, and disputes with outsiders can quickly escalate into brawls on the stone fondamenta. As Marco waits for his first fare, he passes the time in the usual ways. He listens to the gossip of the Stasio, the latest news from the Rialto, the rumors of which noble family is in financial trouble, which courtesan has a new wealthy protector. He takes a whetstone and carefully sharpens the blade of the small knife he carries at his belt, a tool for cutting ropes and, if necessary, for self-defense in the city's rougher quarters. He watches the flow of life in the campo, sees the servants haggling for vegetables, the rich merchants in their fur-lined robes making their way to the exchange, city guards, the signoriti not walking their morning patrol. He is an observer, his senses tuned to the subtle currents of the city, both on the water and on the land. Finally, his turn comes. A man gestures to him from the edge of the canal. He is a merchant, judging by his fine but practical woolen cloak and the leather satchel he carries. He wishes to be taken to the Fondaco dei Tedeschi, the great trading house of the German merchants near the Rialto Bridge. It is a short, straightforward fare. Marco helps the man into the gondola, his hand steadying the boat as the passenger steps in. The merchant settles onto the cushioned seat, and with a smooth, powerful push, Marco propels the gondola out into the now busy canal. He navigates the waterway with an instinctive, fluid grace. The canal is now a crowded thoroughfare, a chaotic jumble of vessels of all shapes and sizes. There are heavy cargo barges, low in the water, being pulled along by sweating laborers. There are smaller, swifter boats, the sandoli, darting between the larger vessels. There are other gondolas ferrying passengers on their own errands. It is a scene of organized chaos, a liquid dance with its own unwritten rules. Marco moves through it all with an effortless-looking precision, his or a sensitive antenna, feeling the wake of other boats, the pull of the current. He gives his rhythmic cries at the corners, a premando, to signal he is pushing, a, to signal he is pulling. It is the constant melodic and essential soundtrack of the Venetian canals, a language of navigation that keeps this impossible city moving. He delivers his passenger to the steps of the great trading house, collects his fee a few small, silver coins, and then pushes back out into the current, his eyes already scanning the crowds for his next fare. The long day has just begun. Marco's day unfolds as a series of short, intense journeys, woven together by periods of watchful waiting. He ferries a silk merchant to his warehouse, a pair of laughing women to a quiet campo for their afternoon stroll, and a stern-faced official to the Doge's palace. Each journey requires his full concentration, his body a finely tuned instrument of propulsion and navigation. The work is unrelenting. From the first light of dawn until the deep purple of dusk, he is in a state of near constant motion. The romantic image of the gondolier, gliding effortlessly through the canals, is a fiction painted for the benefit of the passenger. The reality is a grueling marathon of physical endurance, a testament to the strength and stamina of the men who perform it. The power of the Venetian rowing style comes not from the arms, but from the entire body working as a single, powerful lever. With each forward stroke, Marco pushes off with his legs, his core muscles tightening, his back and shoulders transferring this power through the long shaft of the remo. It is a full-body movement, a repetitive, powerful lunge performed hundreds, even thousands of times a day. By midday, a deep burning ache has settled in his shoulders and lower back, a familiar companion to his trade. His hands, which grip the oar, are covered in thick, hard calluses, polished smooth by the constant friction. His skin is tanned a deep, dark brown from the relentless summer sun, which not only beats down from above, but also reflects up from the surface of the water, creating an intense, shadowless glare. Now the weather is an ever-present and unpredictable partner in his work. A clear, calm morning can, in a matter of minutes, turn into a sudden, violent downpour. The sky darkens, and a cool wind sweeps across the lagoon, raising small, choppy waves in the canals. Rain begins to fall, first as a light mist, then as a heavy, drenching torrent. The stone walkways and bridges become dark and slick, and the sound of the city is replaced by the drumming of the rain on the water and the rooftops. For Marco, this changes everything. The water becomes heavier, or more difficult to control in the wind. He is soaked to the skin in moments, his linen shirt clinging to his body, the water running in rivulets down his face and back. Passengers are scarce, as most people huddle in doorways and under archways, waiting for the storm to pass. He must simply endure, his body growing cold and stiff, until the sun returns. An even more profound force that dictates his every movement is the tide. The Venetian lagoon is not a static lake. It is a living, breathing body of water, connected to the Adriatic Sea, twice a day. The tide rises and falls, sending powerful currents surging through the city's canals. Marco must be a master of these invisible rivers. A journey that is a quick, easy glide when the tide is with him becomes a grueling, muscle-straining battle when the tide is against him. He must know the eddies and the back currents, the places where he can find a pocket of still water to rest for a moment. He has to plan his routes to use the tidal flow to his advantage. A complex mental calculation that is second nature to him, but which would utterly defeat a novice. Sometimes during the winter months, this tidal flow becomes a more dramatic and dangerous event. When a strong southerly wind, the sirocco, blows in from the sea, it can push the high tide to extreme levels, causing the phenomenon of acqua alta, or high water. The water of the canals rises over the stone walkways, flooding the ground floors of buildings and turning the city's squares into vast shallow lakes. For most Venetians, this is a major disruption. But for Marco, it is simply a different set of challenges. Familiar routes become impassable as the rising water makes bridges too low to pass under. He is forced to navigate through flooded campi, or pushing against the strange, still water. Gondola gliding silently past the submerged doorways of shops and houses. The city is transformed into a strange, dreamlike, and slightly menacing version of itself, and he must relearn its geography with each flood. His mind, therefore, is as much a tool of his trade as his body. He holds within it a breathtakingly complex and detailed map of the city. He knows every one of the more than 150 canals, every one of the 400 bridges, every dead end, every shortcut. It is a three-dimensional, intuitive knowledge, a mental web of routes and connections that allows him to navigate the labyrinth with an almost unconscious ease. He reads the city not just by sight, but by sound and feel, knowing his location from the echo of his voice off a particular wall, or the way the current feels under his or in a certain junction. This acute awareness extends to the people of the city. As he waits at his stasio, his eyes are constantly scanning, reading the crowd. He learns to read the subtle language of clothing and bearing, the cut of a man's cloak, the quality of the fabric, the way he carries himself fall. These are clues that tell Marco who he is, where he is likely going, and most importantly, how much he is likely to pay. He can distinguish a wealthy foreign merchant from a local bureaucrat, a nobleman's servant from a master artisan, all at a single glance. His day is a constant exercise in observation and calculation, a quiet, ongoing assessment of the human currents that flow through the city's stone veins. As the sun begins its long, slow descent, casting a golden, honey-colored light over the ancient buildings, Marco feels the deep exhaustion of his long day's labor settle into his bones. He has earned his pay, coin by coin, through a combination of brute strength, immense skill, and a deep intuitive knowledge of his city's secrets. His work as a craftsman, as a human engine, is done for the day. But his work as an observer, as a keeper of secrets, is only just beginning. As the sun begins its slow descent, the character of Marco's work changes. The frantic, practical journeys of the Dea merchant to his warehouse, the artisan to his workshop, give way to the more leisurely and lucrative fares of the evening. The golden hour, when the sun's light softens and enriches the colors of the city, is the time for promenades, for seeing and being seen. His next passenger is a wealthy foreign wool merchant, a man from Flanders, who wishes for nothing more than a slow tour of the city's great watery thoroughfare, the Grand Canal. For Marco, this is a familiar performance. He is no longer just a boatman. He is a guide, the silent presenter of the most magnificent stage in the entire world. He pushes his gondola out from the smaller side canal and into the vast, open water of the Grand Canal. The transition is like moving from a quiet side street onto a royal processional route. The canal, known to Venetians as the Canalazzo, is a great serpentine S-curve of water that splits the city in two. It is the city's main artery, its aorta, the source of its lifeblood of commerce, and the primary stage for its endless theater of power and wealth. The water here is deeper, the current stronger, and the traffic more majestic. The first and most overwhelming impression is of the palaces. An unbroken line of magnificent palazzi rises directly from the water on both sides, their stone foundations lapped by the green canal. There are no gardens, no walkways, no separation between the water and the architecture. The palaces are a forest of stone, a breathtaking display of the immense wealth of the Republic's noble families. Each palace is a declaration, a boast of its family's power, antiquity, and fortune, written in marble, stone, and gold. Marco glides past facades of Venetian Gothic architecture. With their delicate pointed arches, their intricate stone tracery that looks like lace, and their vast multi-paned windows. He points out the Cadoro, the House of Gold. Its facade once adorned with real gold leaf that would have shimmered and blazed in the afternoon sun. He passes other palaces built in the newer style of the Renaissance, inspired by the classical world, with their more orderly, symmetrical designs. Their rounded arches and their facades of gleaming white Istrian stone and soft-colored marble that glow pink and gold in the setting sun. He knows the palaces by the coats of arms carved above their great water gates, or by the distinctive colors of their mooring poles. The Pallini, which are painted in the heraldic colors of the family. There is the Palazzo Foscari, the home of the tragic former Doge, its magnificent Gothic form dominating a bend in the canal. There is the Palazzo Loredin, the Palazzo Gridi, name a pillar of the Republic's history, each building a silent testament to centuries of trade, diplomacy, and intrigue. Marco has seen these facades every day of his life, but he still feels a quiet sense of awe at their sheer, impossible beauty. He sees them not just as buildings, but as the homes of the powerful men whose secrets he will spend his life ferrying up and down this very waterway. The canal is alive with traffic, a far more elegant and stately procession than the chaotic hustle of the smaller canals. Marco expertly navigates between the ornate barges of the great noble families. These are not simple gondolas, but larger, more opulent vessels, often rowed by 4 or more servants dressed in the family's colorful livery. They carry richly dressed noblemen and their wives on their way to evening banquets and balls. Their laughter and the sound of lutes sometimes drifting across the water. He passes the great cargo barges, pulled by sweating men, making their way from the Fondaco dei Tedeschi, the trading house of the German merchants, laden with goods from the North wool, silver, and amber. He sees other boats carrying the treasures of the East that have made Venice rich, fine silks, exotic spices, and precious dyes. The air on the Grand Canal smells different. It is a mixture of the salt lagoon, the whetstone, and the faint exotic scent of cinnamon and cloves from a passing spice barge. Venice is a crossroads of the world, and its cosmopolitan character is on full display here. Marco sees German merchants with their fair hair and heavy woolen clothes, their faces red from the unaccustomed sun. He sees Ottoman traders in their fine silk robes and white turbans, their faces serene and bearded, their dark eyes taking in the spectacle of the Christian city. He sees pilgrims from across Europe, their plain robes marked with the sign of the cross, on their way to book passage on a galley that will take them to the Holy Land. He hears a dozen different languages spoken on the water and on the balconies of the palace's German, French, Greek, Arabica, constant, humming reminder that this small city on the water is the center of a vast global network of trade. As he approaches the heart of the city, the great Rialto Bridge looms before him. At this time, it is not the elegant stone arch we know today, but a magnificent and slightly precarious wooden drawbridge, its timbers worn smooth by centuries of use. It is the only bridge that spans the Grand Canal, and it is the absolute epicenter of Venetian commerce. The bridge itself is lined with small, crowded shops, their colorful awnings fluttering in the breeze. The walkways are a crush of humanity, a noisy, vibrant river of people pouring from one side of the canal to the other. Marco rows his gondola into the deep shadow of the bridge. The sounds of the crowd above, the shouting of shopkeepers, the haggling of customers, the laughter and arguments washing over him. For a moment, he is at the very center of the universe, the pivot point of the world's greatest marketplace. Then, with a few more powerful strokes, he is out the other side, back into the golden sunlight. He delivers his Flemish passenger to the steps of his lodgings, the man's mind reeling from the sheer spectacle of it all. Marco collects his generous payment, his face a mask of professional impassivity. He has performed this tour 100 times. He knows the lines to point out, the names of the families to mention. But as he pushes back out into the current, he looks back at the magnificent glowing facades, and he feels a surge of quiet pride. This is his city, and there is no other place like it on earth. The golden hour, with its lucrative scenic tours, is brief. As the last rays of the sun disappear behind the domes of the churches, the deep, velvety shadows of twilight begin to pool in the narrow alleyways and canals. The grand spectacle of the Grand Canal subsides, its traffic of noble barges and heavy merchant vessels thinning as the great families of Venice retreat into their palaces for their evening meals. For Marco, the work continues, but its nature shifts once more. His next fare is not a wealthy foreigner seeking a tour, but a quiet, hooded figure who wishes to be taken from the bustle of the Rialto to a quiet residence deep in the labyrinth of the San Polo district. And so, Marco turns his gondola away from the grand, open stage and plunges into the city's secret heart, the maze of the minor canals, The transition is immediate and dramatic. To turn from the Grand Canal into a Rio is like stepping from a sunlit piazza into a dark, narrow alleyway. The world shrinks. The wide horizon of the grand waterway is gone, replaced by the tall, looming walls of buildings on either side. The light dies and the air grows cooler, trapped between the stone and the water. The sounds of the city change completely. The noisy, bustling chorus of the Grand Canal fades away, and a deep, profound quiet takes its place. The only sounds now are the gentle, rhythmic splash of Marcos or the soft gurgle of the water against the hull of the gondola and the distant, mournful cry of a seabird. It is a world that is more intimate, more mysterious, and in many ways more truly Venetian. These are the city's residential streets, the veins that connect the great arteries. The buildings here are not the magnificent palaces of the Grand Canal. They are tall, narrow houses 4 or 5 stories high, their facades a patchwork of crumbling plaster. Exposed brickwork and the faint, ghostly outlines of ancient frescoes worn away by centuries of damp and salt. A dark green line of algae runs along the base of every building, a permanent mark left by the daily high tides, a constant reminder that the city is in a perpetual slow-motion struggle with the sea. The smell here is different too. It is the smell of damp stone, of wood rot, of wet laundry, and of the cooking fires from 100 nearby kitchens, all mingling with the ever-present salty scent of the canal water itself. Life in this part of the city is lived vertically, and as Marco glides silently through the narrow canyons of water, he sees the signs of it everywhere. High above his head, lines are stretched between the windows of opposing buildings, and from them hang the day's laundry shirts, stockings, and bed sheets like colorful limp flags. They drip slowly into the canal below, casting strange, dancing shadows on the water. From an open window, he hears the sound of a mother singing a soft, sad lullaby to a crying child. From another, the angry shouts of a husband and wife, their argument echoing for a moment before a shutter is slammed closed. Glides past the lower floors, which are often workshops or warehouses, their barred windows dark and silent. He sees a woman lower a woven basket on a long rope from her fourth-floor window down to a flat-bottomed boat, where a vegetable seller passes up a few onions and a cabbage in exchange for a coin. This is the true, unfiltered life of the city, a life of intimate, everyday moments, and Marco is its silent, unseen witness. The back canals are places of secrets and privacy. He passes the great, water-lapped wooden doors of the smaller palaces, their dark, seaweed-stained stone steps leading directly into the murky water. These are the port daca, the water gates, the private entrances for the family and their honored guests. They are usually closed and barred, their secrets kept within. But occasionally, a gate is left ajar, and Marco catches a fleeting glimpse of a hidden world beyond, the corner of a private courtyard. A flash of green from a secret garden with a pomegranate tree, an impossible and beautiful burst of nature in the heart of the stone labyrinth. He never turns his head, his gaze always fixed forward, his expression impassive. What he sees is not his business. Discretion is the first and most important rule of his trade. Navigating this maze requires a level of skill and precision far greater than that needed on the Grand Canal. The gondola, at over 35 feet, is a long and unwieldy vessel, and the canals are often only a few feet wider than the boat itself. The turns are sharp, right-angled, and completely blind. It is a constant test of Marco's judgment and reflexes. As he approaches a corner, he gives his melodic, echoing cry, a signal of his presence. He then executes a masterful turn, using a powerful, sweeping stroke of his, or while sometimes using his foot to push off the corner of a building, a soft, scraping sound of his shoe against the stone. He glides past the moored boats of the residents, leaving only inches to spare, his or passing just over their gunwales. It is a performance of incredible nonchalant grace, a skill so deeply ingrained in him that it has become an unconscious bodily instinct. The traffic here is not of nobles and merchants, but of the city's working life. Marco passes another gondolier, a man he knows, and they exchange a silent, almost imperceptible nod of recognition, the greeting of two professionals of the same silent craft. He is passed by a sandalo, a smaller, nimbler boat, rowed by two boys delivering a crate of wine to a small canal-side tavern. He sees a garbage scow, a foul-smelling but essential vessel, being pulled along by a man whose face is grim with the unpleasantness of his job. This is the city's hidden circulatory system, the network that keeps it fed, supplied, and in its own way clean. He delivers his silent, hooded passenger to a small, unremarkable water gate in a quiet, forgotten canal. The figure pays him, their face never revealed, and disappears into the darkness of the doorway. Marco does not linger. He does not wonder. He simply pushes his gondola back out into the center of the small canal, his mind already on the journey back towards the brighter, more open waters where his next fare might be waiting. He has been a silent ferryman, a temporary bridge in someone else's secret story, and now that chapter is closed. He is once again alone in the quiet, beautiful, and decaying heart of the floating city. As Marco pulls his gondola away from the quiet, shadowy Rio, he feels the city's pulse begin to quicken once more. He emerges back into a wider, more bustling canal, a place of commerce and purpose. The sun has now fully set, and the brief, magical period of twilight is giving way to the deep, velvety darkness of the Venetian night. The world is now painted in shades of black and deep indigo, punctuated by the warm, flickering points of light from lanterns and torches. His next fare is a master shipwright, a man of importance and authority, who wishes to be taken to his home in the Castello district, near the eastern edge of the city. This journey will take Marco past the source of Venice's immense power and wealth, its great industrial heart. As they glide through the dark water, a new sound begins to dominate the soundscape. A low, rhythmic, and constant hum of activity that persists even into the night. It is the sound of the arsenal. Ahead of them, the immense crenellated brick walls of the Venetian arsenal rise from the water, a vast and formidable fortress within the city. Marco keeps his distance, rowing along the opposite side of the canal, as the waters immediately surrounding the arsenal are strictly controlled. The entrance, the Great Porta Magna, is a magnificent arched gateway flanked by two massive towers. It is guarded by colossal stone lions, ancient trophies of war brought back from Greece, which seem to snarl silently at all who pass. Even from the outside, the arsenal is an awe-inspiring and slightly intimidating sight. It is the largest and most efficient industrial complex in the entire world. From behind its high walls comes the smell of hot pitch and tar, the scent of fresh-cut lumber, and the acrid smoke from the forges that burn day and night. The low, constant sound is the echo of 1,000 hammers. The rasp of countless saws, the shouts of foremen, the sound of a city building the ships that make it the master of the seas. Marco looks at the walls with a mixture of pride and reverence. Every Venetian knows that their freedom and their prosperity depend on the work done within this great humming fortress. It is the source of the war galleys that defend the Republic and the merchant cogs that bring back the riches of the East, leaving the industrial might of the arsenal behind. The journey continues through the quieter canals of the Castello district. Here, another fundamental aspect of Venetian life becomes apparent: its profound and ever-present piety. Venice is a city of churches. It seems that every small square, every campo, is dominated by the facade of its own local parish church. As Marco rows, his path is a constant procession of these sacred buildings. He glides past the simple, unadorned brick facades of ancient parish churches, their foundations slowly sinking into the soft mud of the lagoon. He passes the grander, more ornate marble fronts of the great basilicas, their domes and arches outlined against the starry sky. The bell towers, the campanili, are the city's true landmarks, rising like stone needles from the labyrinth of canals and rooftops. Throughout the day, their bells have marked the hours for work and prayer, their deep, bronze voices rolling across the water, a constant reminder of the presence of God in this city of merchants. Now in the darkness, they are silent, watchful guardians. Occasionally, from an open church door, Marco can hear the faint, ethereal sound of a choir practicing for the next day's mass. The high, clear notes of the boys' voices, a moment of pure, transcendent beauty in the dark. He also passes the magnificent headquarters of the Scuole Grandi, the great lay confraternities of Venice. These were powerful and wealthy, charitable, and religious organizations, and their meeting houses are as grand and imposing as any nobleman's palace. He rows past the Scuola Grande di San Marco with its incredible facade of illusionistic marble panels, a masterpiece of Renaissance art. These buildings were the centers of civic piety, the places where the wealthy citizens of Venice could display both their devotion and their riches, funding hospitals, helping the poor, and commissioning breathtaking works of art, all for the glory of God and the Republic. Marco delivers the shipwright to his home. This long day of work, which began in the gray mist of dawn, is now ending under a canopy of stars. He has traversed the entire spectrum of his city's life. He has seen the breathtaking, theatrical display of wealth on the Grand Canal. He has slipped through the intimate, decaying beauty of the secret back canals. He has felt the thrumming, industrial power of the arsenal. And he has been a silent witness to the deep, abiding faith that is etched into the very stones of the city. He begins his final, solitary journey home. His are dipping rhythmically into the black, reflective water. He understands that Venice is a city of profound and beautiful contradictions. It is a place of immense pride and deep piety, of ruthless commerce and breathtaking art, of public spectacle and intensely private secrets. Its beauty is inseparable from its decay. Its strength is built upon its precarious position between the sea and the sky. To be a gondolier is to navigate not just the physical labyrinth of its canals, but the complex, shifting currents of its very soul. And to do that, one must understand not just the city's stones, but the hearts of the people who inhabit it. The passengers whose lives and secrets he carries with him every day. As the night deepens and the last vestiges of daylight finally surrender to the darkness, the nature of Venice and of Marco's work undergoes its final transformation of the day. The city of commerce and tourism fades away, replaced by a city of shadows and secrets. For these nocturnal journeys, a new and crucial element is often added to the gondola, an object that fundamentally changes its character. This is the Fells, a small, private cabin that can be fitted over the passenger area of the boat. It is a beautifully crafted structure of carved wood and fine black cloth with a small curtained door and shuttered windows, often lined with silk or velvet on the inside. When the Fells is in place, the open gondola is transformed into a small, dark, and completely private room, an anonymous black box gliding silently through the city's dark waterways. The Fells is more than just a shelter from the rain or the cold night air. It is a cocoon of secrecy, a mobile confessional. Within its dark enclosed space, passengers can speak, conspire, and conduct their affairs in almost perfect privacy, hidden from the prying eyes of the world. And standing just outside this box of secrets, his back to the door, is the gondolier. He is the engine and the navigator, but he is also expected to be a deaf and blind witness. A man who has perfected the art of being present but entirely absent. This unique position makes the gondolier the unintentional keeper of 1,000 secrets. The silent librarian of the city's whispered stories. Marco's first fare of the deep night is a classic Venetian tableau. A pair of figures waiting in the deep shadow of a small bridge signal to him with a discreet wave of a gloved hand. As he brings the gondola silently to the stone steps, he can see that they are a man and a woman, both of high station. Judging by the fine silk of their cloaks and the soft leather of their shoes. And both are masked. The man wears a botta, a stark white mask with a prominent, peak-like chin that covers his entire face and distorts his voice. The woman holds a moretta, a small black oval of velvet, held in place by a button clenched between her teeth, rendering her completely silent. They are anonymous phantoms in the night, their identities and intentions hidden behind the city's traditional disguises. The man gives Marco a destination, a quiet, little-used canal in the distant Dorsoduro district, and a generous coin in advance. A silent understanding that this journey requires absolute discretion. The couple disappears into the dark interior of the fells, the small wooden door clicking shut behind them. Marco pushes off from the steps, his oar making almost no sound as it enters the water. His face, illuminated for a moment by the light of a passing lantern, is a perfect mask of professional impassivity. His journey now is not just a physical navigation of the canals, but a delicate navigation of his social role. As he rows, he can hear the faint, low murmur of conversation from within the cabin. The sound is indistinct, the words lost, but the tone is intimate, urgent, and secret. He hears the soft rustle of silk, a low, throaty laugh from the woman, and then a long period of complete silence. Marco's gaze is fixed forward on the dark water ahead. His ears are open, as they must be to hear the warning cry of another boat or the sound of the water changing. But his mind is trained to be a blank slate. He has learned to hear without listening, to be a passive vessel for the sounds that occur around him, letting them flow past him without lodging in his memory. This is the first and most important rule of his craft, a lesson taught to every young gondolier. Vedere, e non vedere, sentire e non sentire. To see and not see, to hear and not hear. His reputation, and indeed his safety, depends on this cultivated ignorance. Venice is a city built on whispers and secrets, a place where gossip can be a valuable commodity, but also a deadly weapon. The state, through its feared Council of 10, has a network of spies and informants everywhere, and a gondolier known for having a loose tongue would not last long. He would find himself without high-paying clients who value silence above all else. Or worse, he might find himself summoned for questioning about what he has overheard, a terrifying prospect from which many men never return. And so, Marco becomes a part of the architecture, an anonymous, functional piece of the city. As silent and impassive as the stone bridges he passes under, he delivers the masked couple to a dark and unmarked water gate, one of hundreds that line the city's back canals. The door of the fells opens, and the man steps out, his face still hidden. He turns to help the silent, black-masked woman. He places another coin in Marco's hand, a final payment for his service and his silence. No words are spoken. The couple disappears through the heavy wooden door, which closes with a soft, final thud. Marco waits for a moment, letting the ripples from his gondola subside. Then, with a slow, deliberate push of his oar, he glides away. The secret of the two lovers, dissolving into the misty darkness behind him, already a half-forgotten murmur. He knows that he is a keeper of countless such stories. He has ferried grim-faced merchants to meetings where fortunes were secretly won and lost. He has carried priests to assignations that would have them defrocked. He has transported politicians to clandestine gatherings where plots were hatched against their rivals. He is the silent thread that connects the city's secret web of power, love, and betrayal. This knowledge is a heavy burden and a strange form of power. He could ruin reputations, expose conspiracies, and destroy lives with a few careless words in a tavern, but he never will. The gondolier's code is absolute. He is a confessional with a keel, and the secrets he carries are as sacred in their own way as those whispered to a priest. His silence is his bond, his honor, and the key to his survival in the beautiful, dangerous, and endlessly secretive city of Venice. Marco does not have to wait long for his next fare. The night is a busy time for the gondoliers who are willing to work it. As the darkness provides a cloak for all manner of business that cannot be conducted in the clear light of day, a man signals to him from the edge of a small, poorly lit campo. He is a merchant, Marco surmises, from the fine but practical cut of his dark woolen cloak. But his face, illuminated for a moment as he steps into the boat, is a mask of profound anxiety. His eyes are dark and sunken, and they dart nervously from side to side, as if he is being followed. He clutches a heavy leather satchel to his chest like a shield, and gives Marco a destination near the Rialto, the city's great financial heart. As the merchant disappears into the darkness of the fells, Marco pushes off. The journey is short, but it is filled with a palpable tension. Marco can hear no conversation from within the cabin, only the sounds of the man's anxiety. He hears the frantic, repetitive rustling of papers, as if the merchant is searching for a document he cannot find. This is followed by the soft, metallic clinking of coins, a sound that is not the confident chink of a man counting his profits, but the nervous, obsessive sound of a man counting his losses again and again. Marco hears the man sigh, a deep, shuddering sound of despair, and then a low, muttered curse. Marco keeps his back straight, his gaze fixed on the dark water ahead. He is ferrying the city's financial fears, the ever-present anxiety of a world built on the high-stakes gamble of maritime trade, where a single storm in the Levant or a single act of piracy could turn a wealthy man into a beggar overnight. He drops the merchant at the dark steps of an imposing building that houses the offices of a moneylender. The man scrambles out of the gondola without a word, his face pale and slick with sweat, and disappears into the shadows. Marco is left with the man's payment and the heavy, lingering feeling of his desperation. He knows this story well. He has ferried many such men on these late-night journeys to the moneylenders of the Rialto. His next fare is of an entirely different nature. He is hailed by a servant from the water gate of a grand palace. As he brings his gondola alongside, two men step into the boat. They are foreigners, and their appearance is striking. One is an older man, dressed in the opulent style of the Ottoman court, with a magnificent silk caftan and a large white turban. His long gray beard is meticulously groomed, and his dark eyes are calm and intelligent. He is accompanied by a younger man, a Venetian, who acts as his interpreter. They are part of a diplomatic delegation, and they wish to be taken to a small private palace in a discreet part of the city. The journey begins. From within the fells, Marco hears a low, continuous murmur of conversation. The language is one he does not understand, the guttural, melodic sounds of the Turkish tongue. He can distinguish the two voices, the deep, authoritative rumble of the Ottoman diplomat, and the smoother, more deferential tones of the Venetian interpreter. He cannot understand a single word, but he understands the gravity of the conversation. He can feel it in the air, is ferrying the secrets of empires, the delicate threads of diplomacy and espionage that connect his city to the great powers of the East. Venice is a city that lives by its wits, survival dependent on a complex web of alliances, trade deals, and secret intelligence. And for this brief journey, Marco is at the very edge of this great game, a silent, invisible servant to the high matters of state. He knows better than to even try to listen, to catch a familiar name or a place. This is a kind of knowledge that is not just a burden, but a mortal danger. He delivers the two men to a silent, darkened palace, its windows all shuttered. The water gate is opened for them by a servant who appears and then vanishes just as quickly. As he pulls his gondola away, Marco sees a small, unmarked, boat detach from the shadows on the other side of the canal and follow the two men's gondola at a discreet distance. He pretends not to notice. It is surely an agent of the Council of Ten, the state's dreaded secret police, whose eyes and ears are everywhere. It is a chilling reminder of the constant, silent surveillance under which the entire city lives. The night wears on, and the fares continue to paint a portrait of the city's soul. He ferries a young, swaggering nobleman, his clothes perfumed, on his way to visit one of the city's famous, educated courtesans. Their homes, islands of light, music, and poetry in the quiet darkness. He transports a group of boisterous, drunken artisans, singing loudly and off-key as they make their way home from a tavern, their fare paid for by a pooled collection of small worn coins. His final fare of the evening is a journey of sorrow. He is called to a palace on the Grand Canal, but it is a palace in mourning. The usual lanterns are not lit, and a black wreath hangs on the great water gate. A noblewoman, dressed from head to toe in black silk, her face hidden by a thick, dark veil, steps into his gondola. She is supported by an older female servant. The lady's destination is a convent on the island of Murano, a place of quiet refuge. The journey is long and almost entirely silent. There is no conversation from within the fells, only the faint, heartbreaking sound of a woman's quiet, stifled sobs. Marco knows the story. The whole city knows it. Her husband was a famous and beloved captain. His ship lost with all hands in a sudden storm off the coast of Dalmatia just a week before. Marco rose with a slower, more measured and respectful rhythm. He is no longer just a boatman. He is a ferryman for the city's grief. He glides past the sleeping palaces, the dark canals, the silent churches, his gondola a small black vessel of sorrow. He thinks of the dangers of the sea, the fragility of the lives and fortunes that depend upon it. He thinks of his own life, his own family, the simple certainties of his world. He delivers the grieving widow to the quiet, peaceful convent, its bells tolling softly in the night. As he begins his long, solitary journey home, he is filled with a deep, quiet melancholy. He has been a vessel for the city's secrets, its anxieties, its politics, and its sorrows, all in a single night. The long, mournful journey to the convent on Murano leaves a quiet pall on Marco's spirit. The night is growing late, the air cooler, and the canals are becoming emptier. He thinks of heading for home, his body weary from the long day and night of rowing. But the lure of one last, generous fare is strong. He pulls his gondola back towards the district of San Marco, where the city's nightlife, for those who can afford it, is at its most vibrant. It is here that the ridati, the private and often illicit gambling houses, operate deep into the night, hidden away on the upper floors of ancient palaces. He does not have to wait long. A servant signals to him from the water gate of a palazzo that is dark at street level, but whose upper windows blaze with the light of dozens of candles, the sound of music and loud, boisterous laughter spilling out into the quiet night. A group of 4 young men, clearly noble by their fine velvet doublets and plumed hats, stumble down the steps and into his gondola. They are flushed with wine, their movements unsteady, their voices loud and careless. They wish to be taken to another palace across the city, and they toss a handful of coins at Marco with a dismissive gesture. They climb into the fells, but they are too full of wine and excitement to bother closing the door. This fare is a different kind of challenge to Marco's professional silence. The masked lovers and the diplomat valued secrecy and spoke in low murmurs. These young men are loud, arrogant, and utterly indiscreet. They seem to have forgotten Marco is there, or perhaps they simply do not care, viewing him as little more than a beast of burden. They speak openly and carelessly, their voices carrying clearly to Marco as he stands at the stern. They boast of their winnings and curse their losses at the card table. One young man, his voice slurred with wine, complains bitterly about his father's refusal to increase his allowance. Another brags in lurid detail about an affair he is having with the wife of a well-known senator. Marco keeps his back to them, his oar rising and falling in a steady, metronomic rhythm. He forces himself to hear only the sound of the water, to focus only on the path ahead. He's learned to build a wall in his mind, a barrier that separates the sounds he needs to hear, the warning cry from another boat, the lap of the water from the sounds he must not. The gossip of these drunken young nobles is the most dangerous currency in Venice. To be known to have heard such things, to be called as a witness, or to be suspected of spreading the tale, could lead to a quiet interrogation in the dungeons of the Doge's palace, a place from which few return. And so he hears nothing. The words wash over him, meaningless sounds in the night. Suddenly, a shape detaches itself from the deep shadow of a bridge ahead. A swift, dark boat, low in the water, and propelled by 6 powerful oarsmen, cuts across their path, forcing Marco to brake sharply. It is a patrol boat of the Signori di Notte, the Lords of the Night, the city's feared and notoriously brutal night watch. A guard in the prow holds up a lantern, its harsh bright light flooding the gondola, making Marco and his passengers squint. Another guard, armed with a gleaming halberd, calls out a sharp, authoritative challenge. The atmosphere in the gondola changes in an instant. The loud, drunken boasting of the young nobleman ceases immediately. They sit up straight, their faces suddenly pale and sober in the lantern's glare. The casual arrogance of their rank is stripped away, replaced by the universal deference and fear that the Signori di Notte command. The patrol boat pulls alongside, and a grim-faced officer, his helmet shadowing his eyes, begins a sharp interrogation. Who are they? Where are they coming from? Where are they going? The young noble who had been boasting of his affair now answers with a meek and respectful voice, giving his family name and assuring the officer that they are simply returning home after a late dinner with friends. The officer listens, his expression unreadable. He then turns his hard gaze on Marco. He asks for his name, his license number, the Stasio he belongs to. Marco answers in a calm, clear, and steady voice, his own fear a cold knot in his stomach. He knows that his livelihood, and perhaps his freedom, depends on appearing professional, sober, and completely unremarkable. Any sign of nervousness, any fumbled answer, could be interpreted as guilt. After what feels like an eternity, the officer seems satisfied. He gives a curt nod, and with a barked command to his oarsmen, the patrol boat pulls away, disappearing back into the darkness as quickly as it came. A collective, relieved sigh goes through the young men in the fells. The encounter has shattered their drunken revelry. The rest of the journey is completed in a tense and sober silence. Marco drops them at their palace, and they disembark without their earlier swagger. They have been reminded that in Venice, no one, no matter how noble, is above the watchful eyes of the state. The encounter leaves Marco with a chill that has nothing to do with the night air. It is a stark reminder of the precariousness of his own position. He is a silent witness, a man who moves through the city's hidden world. But he is never truly a part of it, and he is never truly safe. He is a humble man of the people, and the secrets of the powerful are a fire that can consume anyone who gets too close. As he begins his final solitary journey home, he reflects on the strange cross-section of humanity he has carried in his boat this day. The anxious merchant, the foreign diplomat, the grieving widow, the drunken gamblers. He is the common thread that connects their disparate, secret lives. A priest may hear the city's confessions, and a spy may learn its plots, but only the gondolier sees it all in motion. Carrying the city's soul, one fare at a time, through the beautiful, dangerous, and intoxicating darkness, Marco begins his final journey of the night, the long, solitary row home. The city has finally fallen into a deep and profound slumber. The boisterous sounds of the taverns have died down, the last of the revelers have stumbled to their beds, and even the vigilant patrols of the Signor D not seem to have receded into the shadows. This is the Venice of the deepest night, a city that belongs only to the ghosts, the cats, and the few men like Marco whose work carries them through these silent, lonely hours. A thick, damp mist is rising from the surface of the canals, a common feature of the Venetian night. It softens the hard edges of the stone buildings, blurring the lines between water and sky. The lanterns that once burned brightly are now either extinguished or are just hazy, haloed points of light in the swirling fog. The canals are no longer dark green, but have become perfect. Black mirrors, reflecting the faint silvery light of a waning moon and the cold distant stars. The only sound in the entire world is the gentle rhythmic dipping of Marco's oar, a sound that is immediately swallowed by the thick sound-dampening mist. It is a world of immense quiet and slightly eerie beauty. This beauty, however, is edged with a constant low-level danger. Rowing at night, especially in a thick fog, is a test of a gondolier's deepest instincts. The familiar landmarks are gone, swallowed by the mist. Navigation becomes an act of pure memory and sensory attunement. Marco steers his gondola not by sight but by feel, his oar a sensitive probe in the dark water, telling him of the pull of the hidden currents and the proximity of the canal walls. The greatest danger is a collision with another boat, moving just as silently through the fog. He listens with an intense focus for the slightest sound, the scrape of a hull against stone, the cough of another rower that might signal a boat approaching a blind corner. He is rowing through a quiet, residential canal, one he has navigated 1,000 times, when he sees something that makes him stop. His oar freezes mid-stroke. Ahead of him, a simple, unmarked boat has just emerged from a dark, narrow side canal, a riello that is little more than a watery alleyway. It is a plain, flat-bottomed boat of the kind used by fishermen or laborers, but it is moving with a silent, grim purpose that makes the hairs on the back of Marco's neck stand up. There are 2 men at the oars, their faces hidden by the shadows of their hoods. A third figure sits hunched in the middle of the boat, and between the rowers is a large, heavy object, wrapped in a coarse, dark sackcloth. Instinct takes over. Fuck! Marco does not hesitate. With a single silent push of his oar against the canal wall, propels his gondola backwards into the deep, absolute shadow of a low, arched bridge. He makes himself small, his body flattened against the cold stone, his breathing shallow. From his hiding place he watches. The unmarked boat glides to the center of the canal, directly under the bridge. The 2 rowers ship their oars, their movements swift and practiced. They and the third figure then take hold of the heavy, lumpy sack. For a moment, they struggle with its weight. It is the approximate size and shape of a man, Then, with a coordinated heave, they lift the sack over the side of their boat. It hits the water not with a loud splash, but with a deep, heavy, and sickening thump that seems to be absorbed by the canal. A few large bubbles rise to the surface and pop, and then there is nothing. The sack is gone, swallowed by the black, murky water without a trace. The three figures do not speak. They do not look around. They simply take up their oars again and row away, their boat disappearing back into the thick, swirling mist as if it were never there. Marco remains frozen in the shadow of the bridge, his heart pounding a deafening rhythm in his ears. The silence that returns is now heavier, more menacing than before. He has just witnessed a secret nocturnal burial. He does not know who the victim was or why they were killed. It could have been a merchant who owed a debt to the wrong people, a spy who had outlived his usefulness, a nobleman killed in a secret duel, or the victim of a simple, brutal street robbery. In Venice, the reasons for a quiet death are as numerous as the canals themselves. What he knows for certain is that he has seen something he was never meant to see. He has witnessed a secret being committed to the deep, silent repository of the lagoon. He stays hidden for a long time, listening, every one of his senses on high alert. He waits until the last faint sound of the other boat's oars has completely disappeared, and then he waits longer still. Finally, when he is certain that he is alone, he pushes his gondola out from under the bridge. He does not continue on his usual route home. He turns and takes a different, longer path, his mind racing. He is filled with a cold, creeping fear. The fear is not just of the men he saw, but of the city itself. He has always known about this side of Venice, the dark, violent underbelly that exists just beneath its beautiful, civilized facade. He has heard the stories, the whispered rumors, but to witness it himself, to see how quickly and easily a life can be erased and swallowed by the dark water, is a different thing entirely. He understands now, with a new and chilling clarity, that the water that is the source of his city's life is also the perfect accomplice to its crimes. The canals are the city's memory, but they are also its convenient graveyard, a place that washes away secrets, carries away evidence, and holds its silence for eternity. As he finally approaches his own quiet canal, his fear slowly begins to recede, replaced by a deep and weary resignation. This, too, is the reality of his job. To be a gondolier is to see it all. The lovers and the merchants, the priests and the politicians, the grieving widows and sometimes the silent, anonymous dead. He is the ferryman for every facet of his beautiful, brilliant, and brutal city. Marco finally reaches the familiar, quiet canal of his own small neighborhood in Cannaregio. The mist is thicker here, and the familiar outlines of the buildings are soft, ghostly shapes. He sees the brightly painted mooring pole, the Polina, that marks his family's home. And a wave of profound relief washes over him. It is a beacon, a symbol of safety, and an end to the long, perilous night. He guides the gondola to the stone steps with a final weary push of his oar. The journey is over. Begins his end-of-day ritual, his movements slow and automatic, honed by years of repetition. This familiar routine is a comfort, a way to anchor himself back in the mundane world after the chilling event he has witnessed. He ties the gondola securely to the pole, using a series of practiced, efficient knots. He takes a soft cloth and wipes down the cushioned passenger seat, removing the dampness from the night air. He carefully removes the precious forcula, the sculpted oarlock, and stows it in a locked compartment beneath the stern, protecting it from thieves or the harsh night air. He covers the seats with a heavy, oiled canvas to protect them from the morning dew. He treats the gondola with a quiet reverence, the care of a craftsman for his most essential tool, the affection of a man for a trusted partner. With the boat secured, he finally steps onto the solid stone of the fondamenta. For a moment, he simply stands there, feeling the solid ground beneath his feet. A welcome change after a day and night spent balancing on the unsteady deck of his boat. He looks back at the gondola, a long black sliver of a shadow, rocking gently in the black water. It is a vessel of secrets, and tonight it has carried its heaviest one yet. He turns his back on the canal and quietly lets himself into the small, dark doorway of his building. He climbs the worn stone steps, his footsteps soft so as not to wake the other families. He enters his family's small apartment. The contrast with the world he has just left is immediate and overwhelming. The air inside is warm and still, filled with the familiar, comforting smells of his home, the faint scent of garlic and herbs from the evening's meal, the wood smoke from the hearth, and the simple, human smell of his sleeping family. It is the scent of safety. Few embers still glow in the small fireplace, casting a soft, deep red light on the simple room. In the main room, his family is asleep. His father and mother share a large bed in one corner, their breathing slow and steady. In the other corner, on a small pallet, is his younger sister, her face peaceful in the dim light. This is his world. This is the reason for his long hours, for his aching muscles, for the silence he must keep. He does not work to buy fine silks or to gamble in the ridati. He works so that there is bread on this table, so that there is a roof over their heads. Seeing them here, safe and unaware of the dark things that glide through the city's watery veins, reinforces the absolute necessity of his silence. To speak of what he saw tonight would be to bring that dangerous, shadowy world into this sanctuary, to put them all at risk. The thought is unbearable. He moves to the small wooden table in the center of the room. My mother has left a simple meal for him. A piece of course, dark bread, a few olives, and a small salted fish. He sits and eats in the quiet. The only sound, the soft chewing and the distant, mournful cry of a lone gull out on the lagoon. The simple, honest food is grounding. It is real. It pushes back the chilling, unreal memory of the sack disappearing into the black water. When he is finished, he takes out the small leather pouch that holds his earnings. He empties the coins onto the table, their metallic sound muted by the wood. He separates them in the dim, glowing light of the embers. There are the small, worn copper coins from the artisans and the servants. There are the larger, heavier silver coins from the merchants and the foreign visitors. He counts them slowly. It is a good night's work, not enough to make them rich, but enough to keep them fed, to pay the rent to their landlord, to buy a new ribbon for his sister, perhaps. He gathers the coins and places them in a small earthenware jar hidden in a loose stone by the hearth. This is the family's wealth, the tangible result of his silent journeys. He sits for a long time in the quiet, watching the embers slowly fade from red to gray. The image from the canal returns to him, unbidden. The dark boat, the hooded figures, the heavy sack, the deep, soundless splash. He feels a cold knot of fear tighten in his stomach again. He understands that this memory is now a part of him, a dangerous secret that he must carry alone. This is the true burden of the gondolier. It is not the weight of the oar, but the weight of the stories, the secrets, the lives he ferries through the city. He knows he must forget. He must actively and deliberately push the memory down, bury it in the deepest, darkest part of his mind, and lock it away. This is the final, unspoken skill of his craft. It is not just the art of seeing and not seeing, but the art of seeing and then choosing to unsee, of hearing and then choosing to unhear. To dwell on such things, to carry the fear and the horror with him every day, be to poison his own life, to make him afraid of every shadow. Suspicious of every passenger, he cannot afford that. And so, with a conscious effort of will, he pushes the image away. It was a shadow. It was a dream. It is over. He rises and moves to his own small mattress in the corner. He lies down, pulling a rough wool blanket over his weary body. The exhaustion from his long day and night of work is a heavy physical presence, and it is a welcome one. It is an exhaustion of the body, not of the soul. He closes his eyes. The last sounds he hears are the soft breathing of his sleeping family and the gentle, eternal lapping of the canal water against the stone foundations of his home. He is safe. He is home. And as he finally surrenders to the deep, heavy pull of sleep, he dreams not of dark canals and silent, sinister boats, but of nothing at all. The sleep that takes Marco is a deep and profound oblivion, a black, dreamless void that is the only true reward for his long and arduous day. But it is a respite that is all too brief. What feels like only moments later, the first. Faint light of a new dawn begins to seep through the small window of the apartment, and the familiar sounds of a waking Venice begin to weave their way back into his consciousness. The first bell of a nearby church tolls the hour of matins, its deep bronze voice a gentle but insistent call to the new day. He hears the distant shouts of the first boatmen on the canals and the soft, rhythmic footsteps of the bakers on the stone floor below. A new day has begun. Marco opens his eyes. His body is a landscape of deep, aching stiffness. His shoulders, his lower back, and the muscles in his legs are tight and sore from the thousands of repetitive movements of the previous day. This is the unglamorous reality of his craft, a physical toll that is paid for every graceful turn and every powerful stroke. He is young, and his body recovers quickly. But he sees the price of this life every day in the older gondoliers at his Stasio, sees it in their stooped shoulders, their gnarled arthritic hands, and the permanent wince of pain in their eyes as they push their oars. He knows that this too is his future, a body slowly worn down by the constant, unyielding demands of the water. He rises and moves to the window, looking down at the canal below. The thick mist of the night is beginning to burn off under the pale morning sun, and the water is a soft, milky green. The city is being reborn, its dark, secret-filled night washed away by the clean, simple light of morning. The memory of the previous night, the hooded figures, the heavy sack, the chilling splash, feels distant now, like a half-remembered nightmare. He knows it was real, but in the light of day, the city presents a different face, a face of bustling commerce, of ordinary life, of simple beauty. This is the city's great deception and its greatest strength. It is a place that knows how to keep its secrets. As he prepares for the day, his mind, even in its weary state, is a quiet repository of all he has seen. He is Marco, a simple man from a working-class family. He owns no palace, commands no army, and has no voice in the great councils of the Republic. And yet, he possesses a knowledge of the city that is more intimate and more complete than that of the Doge himself. The Deutsch knows the city from above, from the balconies of his palace and the pages of his state reports. Marco knows it from below, from the water level. He knows the city's true face, the one that is reflected, wavering and distorted in the dark water of its canals. He knows that the water is both the city's life and its grave. It is the source of all its wealth, the great highway of its commerce, but it is also the silent accomplice to its darkest deeds, convenient and eternal resting place for its inconvenient secrets. He knows that the city's breathtaking beauty is a mask, a magnificent and artful facade that conceals a world of ruthless ambition, quiet desperation, and casual brutality. He knows that the lives of the great and the powerful are a fragile performance, and he is the silent, invisible stagehand who moves them from one scene to the next. He finishes his simple morning meal, his body now fully awake, the aches and stiffness beginning to recede. His mind is clear. He has locked away the fear of the previous night. It is a part of him now, a piece of dangerous knowledge added to the vast, silent library in his mind, but it will not paralyze him. He cannot allow it to. He has a family to feed, a boat to maintain, a life to live. He descends the stone steps one last time and steps out into the bright, cool morning. He performs his morning ritual, checking his gondola, slotting the forcola into place. Taking up the long, smooth shaft of the remo, he unties the rope from the polina. He steps onto the stern, his balance perfect, his body ready. The work begins again. The city needs him. With a smooth, practiced push, he glides out into the canal. The water is already beginning to fill with the traffic of the new day. He sees a potential fare ahead, a baker with a large basket of fresh bread. The story does not end. It is a circle. The day is a tide, and it begins again, and he is a part of its eternal, unchanging rhythm. He is a gondolier of Venice, a silent, anonymous, and essential figure, a timeless black sliver gliding through a dream of stone and water. Our journey with Marco is over. His day is ended, and a new one has begun. The life of the city, with all its beauty and all its secrets, flows on, carried by the endless, silent work of the gondoliers. The sounds of the Venetian canals now begin to fade. Let the rhythmic splash of the oar recede into the distance. Bring your awareness back from the misty lagoons of the past to the quiet comfort of your own space. The story is finished. Your own long day is at its end. There is nothing left for you to do but to rest, to let go of all your thoughts, and to allow the gentle tide of sleep to carry you away. Sleep well.